The compass was cold against my palm that morning, December 23rd, dawn barely cracking the horizon. My breath hung in clouds as I walked the fence line, boots crunching frozen gravel. The brass had belonged to my father, worn smooth by 40 years of his hands and 20 more of mine. I checked the north marker like I always did, every morning, same ritual. Inside the Bluebird Diner 3 hours later, the air smelled of burnt coffee and pine wreaths. Linda's laugh cut through the Christmas chatter, loud, sharp, meant to be heard. "Warren's useless," she said, wine glass raised toward the congregation crowd. "Just a relic with dirt under his nails." Troy Garrett grinned beside her, all teeth and tailored suit, unlike my $800 million Riverbend deal, closing in March. The room went quiet. Chrome chairs scraped linoleum. Linda tipped her glass toward my plate. The wine mist splashed red across the formica. "Stay in your dirt, old man." I set my coffee down. Pulled the compass from my pocket, let it rest on the table edge. The needle spun, searching. I didn't know then that deal was mine to lose. The house was quiet when I got home that afternoon. Too quiet. Linda's car sat in the driveway, engine ticking as it cooled. I found her in the bedroom, overnight bag open on the bed, folding sweaters with sharp, precise movements. "Going somewhere?" I asked from the doorway. She didn't look up. "My sister's. Few days. It's Christmas Eve tomorrow. She needs help with the grandkids." The lie sat flat between us. She'd said the same thing last month and the month before that. I noticed the perfume then, something floral and expensive, not the lavender I'd given her last year. The bottle still sat on her dresser unopened, gathering dust beside photos of us from better years. "When will you be back?" "Don't know." She zipped the bag. "Does it matter?" The question hung there. I had no answer that wouldn't sound pathetic, so I said nothing. She brushed past me close enough that the unfamiliar scent caught in my throat. The front door clicked shut. Her taillights disappeared down the gravel drive. I stood at the kitchen window, compass still in my pocket, and watched the sun drop behind the barn. The wind picked up, rattling the loose sheet metal on the roof. Somewhere in the back 40, a branch cracked under the weight of ice. The bank called 2 days later, Christmas morning. I was on the porch with coffee, watching chickadees fight over the feeder. "Mr. Heller? This is Monica from First County, just following up on the withdrawal." "What withdrawal?" A pause, papers shuffling. "The $15,000, land consulting fees. Your wife co-signed the authorization on the 18th. My coffee went cold in my hand. "I didn't authorize any consulting fees." "Oh," her voice tightened. "Well, the signature matches our records, and Mrs. Heller provided the secondary approval, so who is the check made out to?" More shuffling. "A Troy Garrett, listed as a licensed land consultant. Is there a problem, Mr. Heller?" The compass was in my hand before I realized I'd reached for it. The metal felt like ice. "Who's Troy Garrett?" I'm not sure I can... "Monica, who is he?" She lowered her voice. "Between us? He's been in here 3 times this month. Real estate broker, talks loud, tips big. Your wife came with him once. They seemed friendly." The line went dead in my hand, but I kept holding the phone, staring at the frozen field stretching out toward the tree line. $15,000. Land consulting. The words tasted wrong. I pulled up the bank's website on my phone. Took me 10 minutes to remember the password. There it was, December 18th, withdrawal, Linda's signature next to mine. Except I'd never signed anything. The chickadees scattered when I stood. Coffee sloshed over the porch rail, steaming against the frost-covered boards. I spent the afternoon in the office, pulling files. Property insurance, updated in November. Linda's signature, not mine. Bank account access forms, October, same thing. A letter from the county clerk about a title search request dated September. Someone had been asking questions about my land for months. The compass sat on the desk, needle steady, pointing north through the window toward the back 40. I'd walked those 40 acres every morning since my father died. Knew every corner of every marker, every fence post. The land wasn't just property, it was his sweat, his years, his hands clearing brush and stringing wire. And now someone named Troy Garrett was taking $15,000 for consulting on it. I called Dutch. He answered on the 4th ring, voice rough with age and cigarettes. "Warren, Merry Christmas. You still keep those old survey maps? The ones from when we did the property lines in '74? In the attic somewhere. Why?" "Someone's been asking questions about my land." A long pause. Wind hissed through the phone line. Funny you mention it. Had a guy call me last month. Young fella, real slick. Wanted to know about your back 40, specifically. Asked if the corners had ever been disputed. What did you tell him? Told him to call you. He said he would. Dutch coughed. Never did, huh? No. What's his name? Troy Garrett. Another pause. That's the one. Had a feeling something was off. Want me to dig out those maps? Yeah. And Dutch? Don't tell anyone you're looking. Copy that. I hung up and sat in the dark office, watching headlights crawl past on the distant highway. The compass needle didn't waver. True north, same as it had been this morning, same as it would be tomorrow. But something had shifted. I felt it in my gut, cold and certain as the December wind scraping across the roof. They weren't just asking about my land, they were planning to take it. The Bluebird Diner smelled like burnt coffee and cinnamon rolls when I walked in that night. Bonnie waved from behind the counter, her smile faltering when she saw my face. The place was packed. Congregation crowd from the Christmas service, everyone still dressed in their Sunday best despite it being a Friday. Linda sat in the center booth, Troy Garrett beside her. His suit probably cost more than my truck. Hair slicked back, watch catching the overhead lights every time he gestured. He was talking loud enough for the whole room to hear. 800 million, he said, leaning back with his arms stretched across the booth behind Linda. Riverbend Development, biggest deal in North Texas this decade. We close in March, and I'm talking to investors about the next phase, another $500 million, easy. Linda laughed, touching his wrist. The diamond bracelet caught the light. I'd never seen it before. I sat at the counter. Bonnie poured coffee without asking, her hand shaking slightly as she set the mug down. Pie? She whispered. Just coffee. Behind me, Troy's voice rose another notch. Location, location, location. That's what separates the big players from the... He paused. I felt his eyes on my back. From the small-timers. Someone coughed. The diner went quiet except for the hiss of the coffee maker. Linda's voice came next, clear and cold. Warren's useless anyway, just a relic with dirt under his nails. I turned slowly. She was looking right at me, wine glass raised like a toast. Her face was flushed. From wine or anger, I couldn't tell. He spends every morning walking around with that old compass like he's going to find buried treasure. She laughed again, sharper this time. Newsflash, Warren. There's nothing out there but dirt and debt. Troy grinned, all teeth. Unlike my Riverbend deal, 800 million closing in March. He emphasized the deadline, watching me. Some people build empires, others just maintain. The chrome chairs scraped against linoleum. 20 faces turned toward me, waiting. Pastor Jim sat 2 booths over, looking at his plate. Edna from the county clerk's office stared into her coffee. Even Bonnie had backed away from the counter. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the compass, and set it on the formica. The brass was still cold. The needle spun once, then settled pointing north toward the window, toward home. Linda stood, unsteady on her heels. She picked up her wine glass and took 3 steps toward me. The diner held its breath. Stay in your dirt, old man. She tipped the glass. Red wine arced through the air, missing my plate, splashing across the counter in a crimson spray. Drops hit my sleeve, the compass case, the front of Bonnie's apron. I didn't move. Just sat there, watching the wine run in thin streams toward the edge of the counter, dripping onto the linoleum with soft taps that echoed in the silence. Troy laughed, a bark of sound that made 2 people flinch. He tossed cash on the table and stood, offering Linda his arm. Come on, babe. Let's get out of here before the poverty rubs off. They walked out together. The door chime rang. His Cadillac engine roared to life in the parking lot. I picked up the compass, wiped it clean with a napkin, and finished my coffee. It had gone cold. Bonnie brought me apple pie without asking, on the house. I left a 20 on the counter and drove home with the windows down, letting the December wind burn my face. The papers were in the office file cabinet, right where Linda had left them. She hadn't even bothered to hide them well. Loan application, $50,000. For land development consulting services, dated November 12th. Linda's signature on line 7, mine on line 12, except I'd never signed it. I held the paper up to the desk lamp. The ink was the same color, the loops identical to my handwriting, but my signature slants right. This one sat perfectly straight, like someone had traced it carefully. Behind it, property insurance updates, signature, forged. Bank account access forms, signature, forged. A thick packet from something called Heller Holdings LLC, filed with the county in October. Articles of incorporation, transfer of mineral rights, authorization. pending final approval, all signed with my name, all in that too perfect, too straight hand. I spread the documents across the desk like a poker hand. 6 months of planning, maybe more. While I'd been walking fence lines every morning with my father's compass, checking posts and clearing brush, Linda had been signing papers, backdating forms, building something I couldn't see. The compass sat on the desk, pointing north through the window. The needle didn't waver, but I did, because looking at those papers I understood. This wasn't an affair, this was a heist. And I'd been too busy checking fence posts to notice someone was stealing the whole damn ranch. Pauline showed up unannounced 3 days later, her Buick rumbling up the gravel drive at dawn. I was on the porch with coffee, watching the sun try to burn through the clouds. She got out slow, favoring her left hip, and pulled a casserole dish from the passenger seat. Red pen stuck behind her ear, legal pad tucked under her arm. She looked older than I remembered, 71 now, her hair more silver than gray, but her eyes were sharp as ever. "Heard about the diner," she said, climbing the porch steps. "Whole county's heard about the diner." I held the door open. 3-hour drive. You didn't have to. Yeah, I did. She set the casserole on the kitchen counter. Smelled like beef and onions, still warm. "We haven't talked in 3 years, Warren. I should have called sooner. I'm calling now." The last time we'd spoken was at Mama's funeral, arguing over who got the china cabinet. Stupid, petty stuff that felt important then and meaningless now. She'd driven off angry, and I'd let her go. "Coffee?" I asked. "Always." We sat at the kitchen table, the morning light slanting through the window across her legal pad. She pulled the red pen from behind her ear and clicked it twice, old habit from 40 years practicing title law. "Show me everything," she said. I laid out the documents, loan applications, insurance updates, the LLC paperwork, transfer authorizations. She read each one slowly, pen tapping against the pad, making notes in her cramped handwriting. "These signatures," she said finally, "none of them are yours." "I know." "And you didn't sign anything? Nothing at all?" "Nothing." She sat back, staring at the papers. Outside, the wind rattled the bare branches against the house. "This is fraud, Warren, criminal fraud. Do you have the original deed, the one Daddy gave you?" "In the safe." "Get it. We're going to need it." I pulled the deed from the office safe, thick paper, yellowed at the edges, my father's signature in faded blue ink from 1974. The year he'd handed me the compass and told me the land was mine now. Take care of it. Pauline held it up to the light, checking the county seal, the notary stamp, the recorded date. "This is good. Unbroken chain of title, clear back to the original land grant." She made another note. "That LLC they created, Heller Holdings, it's trying to insert itself into the chain, but without your actual signature on the transfer, it's worthless. So, I'm safe?" She looked at me over her reading glasses. "For now, but they're not done yet. If they went this far, they're planning something bigger." She tapped the papers. "This Troy Garrett, what do you know about him?" "Real estate broker, drives a Cadillac, takes my wife to diners. And this Riverbend deal he keeps bragging about? 800 million, keeps saying it closes in March." Pauline's pen stopped mid-tap. "March, that's specific." She flipped through the LLC documents again, slower this time. "There's a reason for that deadline. There always is." She circled something on page 6. "Mineral rights development permit, applied for in September, expires March 31st if not exercised." The words didn't make sense at first. "Mineral rights. There's nothing under my land, but are you sure?" I wasn't. I'd never checked. Never had reason to. Pauline stood, gathering the papers. "We're going to the county office Monday morning. I want to see the full title history and every document filed against your property in the last year." "Pauline." "No." She turned, and for a second I saw Mama in her face. Same set to the jaw, same fire in the eyes. "You helped Dutch when he lost everything in '98. You drove me to chemo every week when Robert died. Family means something, Warren. I should have been here 3 years ago. I'm here now. We're going to fix this." Something in my chest loosened. I hadn't realized how tight it had been until that moment. "Thank you," I said. She patted my hand. "Save it for when we win." That afternoon, I walked the back 40 with the compass. The ground was frozen solid, crunching under my boots. I checked the northwest corner first, the old oak marking the property line, same as always. But 15 feet in from the tree line, I found fresh survey stakes, orange plastic, the kind they sell at the hardware store, driven deep into the frozen ground, I pulled the compass out, checked the bearing. The stakes were inside my property line. Not on it. Inside. Someone had moved the markers. I called Dutch from the tree line, breath clouding in the cold air. "Those maps," I said. "I need them tomorrow." "That bad?" I stared at the orange stake, bright against the gray winter ground. "Worse." Troy found me at the Bluebird on Monday morning. I was in the back booth with eggs and toast reading the county ordinances Pauline had printed out. The door chime rang, and he walked in like he owned the place. Pressed shirt, cologne strong enough to cut through the bacon grease smell. He slid into the booth across from me without asking. "Warren." He smiled. All veneers. "We need to talk." I kept reading. Bonnie hovered near the counter, coffee pot in hand, watching. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," Troy said, louder now. Heads turned. He wanted an audience. "All I'm asking is you sign a simple transfer. Take your cut. Retire quietly. Hell, I'll even bump you to 200 grand. That's generous for," he gestured vaguely, "what you've got out there." I set the papers down, folded them carefully. "What I've got out there is 40 acres my father cleared with a mule. Not for sale." "Everything's for sale, old man. You just don't know your price yet." The diner had gone quiet. Forks stopped moving. Pastor Jim sat 2 tables over, pretending to read his phone. Edna from the county office stared into her coffee, but I could see her listening. "I know exactly what it's worth," I said. "And I know what you're trying to do." Troy's smile thinned. "I'm trying to help you. Linda wants to move on with her life. You really want to drag this through courts? Embarrass yourself further?" He leaned forward. "People are already talking. Poor old Warren. Can't keep his wife happy. Can't keep up with the modern world. Just sign the papers. Take the money. Have some dignity." I picked up my coffee mug, took a slow sip, set it down between us. "See yourself out." His jaw tightened. For a second the mask slipped, and I saw something cold underneath. Calculation, desperation, maybe fear. "You'll regret that." He stood, smoothing his shirt. "Some opportunities don't come twice." He walked out. The Cadillac engine roared to life in the parking lot, spraying gravel as he peeled out. Bonnie brought me fresh coffee, without a word. Her hand steadier than it had been at Christmas. When I left, 3 people nodded at me. Small gestures, but they meant something. Outside, the sky had turned the color of old steel. The county records office sat in the basement of the courthouse, smelling of dust and old paper and burnt coffee from the clerk's desk. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in harsh white. Pauline had called ahead. Edna was waiting for us, pulling deed books from the metal shelves that stretched floor to ceiling. "Heller property," Edna said, setting 3 leather-bound volumes on the reading table. "Goes back to 1872. What are you looking for?" "Everything filed in the last year," Pauline said, pulling out her red pen. We spread out. Pauline took the recent supplements. I took the deed books. Edna worked the microfiche machine in the corner, an ancient relic from the 80s that squeaked with every turn of the crank. For 2 hours, the only sounds were pages turning, pen scratching, the squeak of the machine. The furnace kicked on, blowing stale heat through the vents. My eyes ached from reading faded ink and cramped handwriting. Then Pauline went still. "Warren." Something in her voice made my stomach drop. I moved to her table. She had 3 documents lined up, her finger tracing between them. "This LLC, Heller Holdings, filed October 8th. Articles of incorporation, registered agent listed as Linda Heller." She slid the next paper over. "November 15th, quiet claim deed application, transferring your mineral rights to the LLC, not recorded yet, still in pending status. And this she pulled the 3rd document. "September 12th, development permit application for mineral extraction. Applicant, Riverbend Development Corporation, property location." She looked up at me, and I saw something I'd never seen in Pauline's face before. Fear. "It's your property, Warren. The back 40. Mineral survey attached, estimated recoverable value of rare earth deposits." She stopped, swallowed. $800 million. The fluorescent lights buzzed. Somewhere above us, a door slammed. The furnace hummed. "Say that again," I said. "Troy's Riverbend deal. It's not near your land. It is your land. All of it." Her hands shook, holding the papers. "The deposits run along a corridor that cuts right through your back 40. Someone did a geological survey, probably that consulting Linda paid for, and found rare earth minerals. The kind tech companies pay fortunes for. Lithium, cobalt, maybe more." I sat down hard in the metal chair. The room tilted. "They were going to steal it. I said. Transfer the mineral rights through the LLC, make it look legal, then flip it to Riverbend before I even knew what happened. The permit expires March 31st, Pauline said. That's why Troy's desperate. If they don't get your signature on the transfer before then, the whole deal collapses. Riverbend probably has investors lined up, contracts signed, money committed, and it all hinges on one thing. Me signing. You signing. Edna had stopped working the microfiche. She stood at her machine, one hand over her mouth, staring at us. I pulled out the compass, set it on the table among the papers. The needle spun once, twice, then settled, north, same as always. Can they forge the final documents? I asked, like they did the others. Pauline shook her head. Not the mineral rights transfer. State law requires in-person notarization with 2 witnesses and a county clerk verification. That's why they need you to actually sign. That's why Troy's pushing so hard. And if I don't? March 31st comes and goes. Permit expires, deal dies. She gathered the papers. But Warren, $800 million. These people won't just walk away. They've invested too much. Troy probably owes money to his investors. Linda's in too deep. They're going to keep pushing. The basement felt colder. I could smell mildew now, underneath the dust and coffee, the kind of smell that gets into old buildings and never leaves. How did we miss this? I said. How did I not know there were minerals under my weed? Because nobody looked, Edna said quietly from across the room. Mineral surveys are private unless someone files them for permit purposes. This one was commissioned by an LLC, technically legal, and kept quiet until they needed it. She walked over, arms crossed. For what it's worth, Warren, I saw that permit application come through. Something felt wrong about it. I slowed down the processing as much as I could. Why? She shrugged. Your daddy used to bring me apples from his trees. Every fall for 20 years. Good people deserve better than to get robbed by spreadsheets. Pauline started making copies, the machine whirring in the corner. We need to file an emergency injunction, freeze all pending transactions on the property. It'll buy us time, but what? She looked at me over the copier. They're going to fight. Probably claim you're mentally incompetent, that Linda had power of attorney. They'll drag your name through every courtroom in the county, if they have to. Through the basement window, I could see shoes walking past on the sidewalk above. Normal people, normal day. While down here, my entire world had just fractured into something I didn't recognize. My land, I said. 40 acres. That's all it ever was to me. Just land. To them, it's 800 million reasons to destroy you, Pauline said. The compass sat on the table, brass dulled by the fluorescent lights, but the needle still pointed north, still held true. I picked it up, felt the weight of it, the smooth metal worn by my father's hands and mine. Then we fight, I said. Edna nodded once. Pauline clicked her pen twice and opened a fresh page on her legal pad. Outside, clouds had moved in. The first snow of January started to fall. Linda called that night. I was in the kitchen, reheating Pauline's casserole, when my phone lit up with her name. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Warren. Her voice was thin, stretched. We need to talk. About what? About all this, the lawyers, the papers Pauline filed. You're making this so much harder than it has to be. I stirred the casserole, watching steam rise. Outside, snow fell past the window in thick, silent flakes. I'm not the one who forged signatures, Linda. I didn't. She stopped, started again. Troy said those were just preliminary documents, formalities. He said you'd be fine with it once you understood the opportunity. $800 million under my land. That the opportunity, you mean? Silence. Long enough that I could hear her breathing, quick and shallow. You know, she said finally. I know. Warren, please, just sign the transfer. Take your share. 200,000, maybe more. We can both walk away from this. Start over. I turned off the stove. The casserole had started to burn at the edges, filling the kitchen with the smell of scorched onions. Start over, I repeated. You mean you start over with Troy and his Cadillac, and I start over with whatever scraps you decide to throw me from my own land. It's not like that. Then what's it like? She didn't answer. In the background, I heard voices. Troy's voice, muffled but insistent. She covered the phone. When she came back, her tone had changed, harder. You're being stubborn. Everyone knows it. Even Pastor Jim thinks you should be reasonable. Pastor Jim doesn't know about the forged signatures. We can fix this, she said, quietly. No courts, no lawyers. Just sign, Warren, please. The snow was coming down heavier now, coating the porch rail, the truck, the frozen field beyond. I thought about my father walking those fields in worse storms than this, checking fence posts in the dark, making sure everything held. No, I said. Warren, you stole from me, Linda. You and Troy called me useless in front of the whole town while you were planning to take everything. And now you want me to just… what? Say it's fine? Shake hands and walk away? I didn't know how much it was worth, she said, voice breaking. Not at first. Troy said it was just a small investment opportunity. 50,000 maybe. I didn't know about the minerals until… Until when? She went quiet again. Until when, Linda? December, she whispered. He told me in December, after the diner, after she'd already humiliated me, after she'd already poured wine and called me useless, after she'd already signed her name to half a dozen forged documents. I'm sorry, she said. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am. This got out of control. Troy said… I don't care what Troy said. I care that you let him use you, use us, our marriage, for this. The line went dead. I stood in the kitchen, with the phone in my hand, smelling burnt casserole and watching snow accumulate on the windowsill. Somewhere in the house, the furnace kicked on. The pipes creaked. I should have felt angry, should have felt betrayed. Mostly I just felt tired. Pauline came back the next morning with Dutch. He climbed out of his old Ford, carrying a cardboard tube under one arm. Snow crunched under his boots as he crossed the yard. Got what you need, he said, tapping the tube. We spread the maps on the kitchen table. Original survey documents from 1974, hand-drawn on vellum, corners marked with my father's initials and Dutch's signature. Every measurement precise, every angle calculated with the old transit equipment they'd hauled through the mud that spring. Dutch pointed to the northwest corner. This oak tree, your property line runs true north from here, 2,200 feet. See these bearings? I took them myself with the transit. Troy's survey? He pulled out a printout, laid it next to the original, puts the line 15 feet inside your property, deliberate fraud. Pauline made notes on her legal pad. Can you testify to that in court? Already wrote my statement. Dutch pulled folded papers from his coat pocket. Notarized yesterday. Every measurement, every discrepancy. Judge can send his own surveyor to verify if he wants, but these original maps don't lie. I stared at the vellum, my father's handwriting in the margins. Notes about trees to clear, fence posts to set, wire to string. 40 years of his life, measured and marked and recorded. We need photographs, Pauline said, of the fraudulent stakes, with something showing the true property line for comparison. I pulled out the compass. I can do that today. Do it now, she said, before they realize we know and try to move them again. The back 40 was buried under 6 inches of fresh snow. I walked the fence line with the compass in one hand, phone in the other, taking pictures of every orange stake. At each marker, I set the compass down in the snow beside it, made sure the needle was visible, then photographed both together. True north, constant, provable. The cold bit through my coat. My fingers went numb operating the phone, but I documented everything, every stake, every bearing, every deviation from the original survey line. At the northwest corner, I found something else. Fresh boot prints in the snow, large, deep. Made recently, maybe this morning. Someone had been out here, checking the stakes. I followed the prints back toward the road. They ended at tire tracks, wide-set, aggressive tread. A truck, not a car. Troy checking his work, or getting nervous. I took pictures of the tracks too, then walked back to the house as the sun broke through the clouds, turning the snowfield into something bright and painful to look at. Inside, I downloaded the photos to my laptop, 47 images, the compass visible in each one, brass bright against white snow, needle steady. Pauline reviewed them on her tablet, nodding. These are good, old-school proof, the kind judges trust. Will it be enough? I asked. She looked up at me, red pen behind her ear. It better be, because they're running out of time, and desperate people make mistakes. Outside, fresh snow started to fall. Church was different on Sunday. I felt it the moment I walked through the doors, conversation stopping mid-sentence, eyes sliding away, the weight of judgment hanging in the cold air like incense. I took my usual seat, third pew from the back. The wood was smooth under my hands, worn by 40 years of sitting in the same spot. Organ music filled the space, but underneath it I heard whispers, low voices, my name. Pastor Jim's sermon was about forgiveness, about letting go of grudges, about how holding on to anger poisons the soul more than it hurts the person you're angry at. He didn't look at me once, but I felt every word aimed like an arrow. After the service, he found me in the parking lot. Warren. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Could we talk for a moment? We stood by my truck while people filed past, heading to their cars. The sun was bright on the snow, making everything painfully white. I've been hearing things, Pastor Jim said carefully, about you and Linda, about legal disputes. You heard right. Warren, I know this is difficult. Divorce is always painful, but dragging this through courts, making accusations. He put his hand on my shoulder. Forgiveness is strength. Perhaps Linda just made a mistake. Men your age, we sometimes get set in our ways, suspicious. Maybe she was trying to help, and I stepped back. His hand fell away. She forged my signature on legal documents, I said. She and her boyfriend tried to steal $800 million worth of minerals from my land. That's not a mistake. That's fraud. His smile thinned. I'm sure it's more complicated than that. Linda's been talking to some of the church ladies. She's very upset, says you're being unreasonable. Paranoid, even. Paranoid. Well, he shifted his weight. You have to understand how it looks. A younger man pays attention to your wife, and suddenly you're seeing conspiracies everywhere, filing lawsuits. It's concerning. Behind him, I saw Marjorie and Beth standing by their car, watching us. When I made eye contact, they turned away quickly. You think I'm making this up, I said. I think grief and anger can make us see things that aren't there. Linda said she was only trying to help manage some finances, that you misunderstood because you never paid attention to the paperwork. The compass was in my pocket. I gripped it, felt the brass edges press into my palm. She's lying. Pastor Jim sighed. Warren, I'm trying to help you here. The congregation is concerned. Some folks think you're... He paused, choosing his words. Not yourself lately. If you need to talk to someone, professionally, I can give you some referrals. Professionally, you mean a psychiatrist. I mean someone who can help you process what you're going through. At your age, stress can... I'm 68, not senile. No one's saying that, but his tone said exactly that. I'm just suggesting you consider whether this is worth destroying your reputation over. Linda's willing to reconcile, to work things out quietly. Maybe you should think about accepting her olive branch. I looked past him at the church, red brick, white steeple, same building I'd attended since I was a boy, where I'd married Linda 40 years ago, where we'd buried my father. Half the congregation thought I was crazy, the other half felt sorry for me. Either way, I was alone. Thanks for the concern, Pastor, I said. I'll manage. I drove home with the windows down, letting the cold air burn the anger out of my lungs. Pauline was waiting on my porch with her laptop and 3 boxes of county records. They're good, she said, not looking up. I'll give them that. Very good. I unlocked the door. She followed me inside, spreading papers across the kitchen table. I've been comparing signatures, Linda's real signature versus the ones on the documents. She laid out 3 sheets. See here? These are from Christmas cards she signed. Her real handwriting. Now look at these, the loan applications, the LLC papers. I studied them. They looked identical to me. The slant is different, Pauline said. Subtle, but there. And the pressure. See how her real signature has varying thickness? These are too uniform. Someone traced them, probably from an old check or document, then copied it carefully. Can you prove that in court? I can now. She pulled another document from the box. This is the bank loan from December, the one Troy co-signed with Linda. I requested the original from First County, and she held it up to the lamp. See this signature? It's Linda's, but look at the paper underneath. There's an impression. Someone signed something else on the page above this one, pressed hard enough to leave marks. I squinted. Faint lines, barely visible. I had a forensic document examiner look at it. The impression matches Linda's signature exactly. Same loops, same pressure points, which means someone put Linda's real signature on top of this page, then traced over it to create the forgery below. Who? The loan officer at the bank, guy named Preston. Been there 12 years, never a problem. Until... She flipped through her notes. Until he suddenly retired early. 3 weeks ago, golden handshake. 20 years of pension at age 49. The pieces clicked together. Troy paid him off. More than that. Pauline pulled up a bank statement on her laptop. Preston has a new fishing cabin in Oklahoma. Paid cash, $250,000. Bought it January 15th. After we started asking questions. Exactly. She sat back, clicking her red pen. This isn't just civil fraud anymore, Warren. This is conspiracy, forgery, bribery, and it goes deeper than Linda and Troy. There's money moving through shell companies, payoffs to bank employees, coordinated document fraud across multiple institutions. I poured coffee, watching steam rise. Outside, icicles dripped from the porch overhang. The afternoon sun had started the thaw. How many people are involved? I asked. At least 4 that I can prove. Troy, Linda, Preston the banker, and probably a lawyer who set up the LLCs, maybe more. She made another note. They built this carefully, took months, but they made mistakes because they got greedy. What kind of mistakes? She looked up, and for the first time in days, I saw something like hope in her face. They thought you were just a stupid old man who wouldn't check. They underestimated you. She tapped the compass sitting on the table between us. And they didn't count on you having a sister who spent 40 years untangling property fraud for a living. The coffee was bitter, strong. I drank it anyway. What's next? We file everything. Criminal referral to the DA, emergency injunction, and we wait for them to panic. She gathered the papers. Desperate people make stupid mistakes, Warren. We just have to be patient. The icicles outside kept dripping, steady, constant, like a clock counting down. February came in cold and mean, the kind of cold that settled into your bones and wouldn't leave. I spent most nights at the kitchen table, staring at documents I'd read 100 times, trying to make sense of how 40 years of marriage had turned into this. Linda called on the 23rd, late, past midnight. I almost didn't answer. Warren? Her voice was raw, like she'd been crying for hours. Please, I need you to listen. I sat in the dark kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, compass on the table in front of me, catching the moonlight through the window. I'm listening. I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. I know that now. She took a shaky breath. He's not who I thought he was. He's desperate. Calling me at all hours, saying things, threatening things if this deal doesn't go through. What kind of things? That I'm in too deep, that I signed papers, that if it all comes out, I'll go down with him. Her voice broke. I'm scared, Warren, really scared. The furnace kicked on, blowing warm air through the vents. I watched the compass needle, steady and sure. You should be scared, I said. You committed fraud. I know, but I didn't understand what I was doing. Troy said it was just paperwork, that you'd never even notice, that we'd all make money and... She stopped. I'm not trying to make excuses. I need you to know I never meant to hurt you. But you did. Yes, barely a whisper. I did. Outside, wind rattled the windows. A tree branch scraped against the siding, rhythmic and lonely. What do you want, Linda? She paused so long I thought the line had dropped. I want you to sign the papers. Not for Troy, for me. So I can get out of this, start over somewhere else. And what do I get? The farmhouse. $100,000. And I'll disappear. You'll never have to see me again. I picked up the compass, turned it in my hand, feeling the weight of it. My father's hands had held this. His father's before that. 3 generations of men who'd walked this land and called it home. That's generous, I said. Warren, considering you were trying to take $800 million. Silence. Just sign, she said. Please, end this. Let us both move on. You get the house, I get to leave, and this whole nightmare is over. The compass needle pointed north, always north, true and constant. I'll think about it, I said. Warren, the permit expires March 31st. We don't have time for... I said I'll think about it. I hung up before she could respond. For a long time, I just sat there in the dark, holding the compass in one hand, phone in the other. The house creaked around me, empty, quiet. I could hear every sound, the refrigerator hum, the furnace rumble, my own breathing. One signature, that's all it would take. Sign the papers, take the money, let them have the minerals. The house would be mine, Linda would be gone, and I could go back to walking fence lines in peace, just one signature. I thought about my father, how he'd cleared this land with a mule and determination, how he'd walked it every morning with his compass, checking corners, maintaining boundaries, how he'd handed it to me on his deathbed and said, "Take care of it, son. It's all we got." The compass was cold in my palm. I set it on the table, pointing north through the window toward the back 40. "I'll manage," I whispered to the empty kitchen, but I wasn't sure I believed it. Pauline showed up at dawn with a banker's box full of files and a court order. "Emergency hearing," she said, setting everything on the table. "March 28th, 3 days before the permit expires." That's cutting it close. That's the point. Judge wants to see if Troy panics. If he makes a move, tries to force your hand, we've got him. She pulled out a thick document. "I'm filing a quiet title action today. Freezes every transaction on your property until the court rules. Nothing moves without a judge's approval." I poured coffee. My hands were steady now. The night's doubt had burned off with the sunrise. "Linda called last night," I said. "Offered me $100,000 in the house if I sign." Pauline's pen stopped mid-note. "What did you tell her?" "That I'd think about it." She studied my face. "And?" I set the compass on the table between us. "My father walked this land for 40 years. Never got rich, never got famous, just did the work, kept the fences up, made sure the corners held." I touched the brass. "He gave me this and told me to take care of what was his. I'm not signing." Pauline smiled, small, fierce. "Good, because I've got something else." She pulled a file from the bottom of the box. "Preston, the banker who retired early, the DA's office questioned him yesterday. He lawyered up, but he's scared. They offered him immunity if he cooperates." "Will he?" "His lawyer's asking for a deal, which means Preston knows enough to hurt Troy." She made a note. "We've also got the forensic document examiner's report. Confirms the signatures were forged, and Dutch's testimony about the fraudulent survey. It's enough." "Enough for what?" "Enough to win." She gathered the papers, organizing them with the precision of 40 years' practice. "The hearing's in 5 days. Troy has until then to do something stupid. My bet? He shows up at your door with a final offer. And if he does?" She clicked her pen twice. "You record every word. Every? Then you call me." That afternoon, I drove to the county courthouse with Pauline. We climbed the steps together, her favoring her bad hip, me carrying the banker's box. Inside, the clerk's office smelled of old paper and floor polish. Edna was behind the counter, reading glasses perched on her nose. "Miss Moss," she said. "Mr. Heller, right on time." Pauline slid the paperwork across the counter. "Emergency quiet title action. Needs to be filed today." Edna reviewed each page slowly, stamping and initialing. When she finished, she looked up at me. "This'll freeze everything," she said. "You understand that? No transactions, no transfers, nothing moves until the judge rules." "I understand." She stamped the final page. "Court date is March 28th, 10 a.m., Judge Morrison presiding." 3 days before the permit expired, 3 days before Troy's entire deal collapsed. We walked out into cold sunshine. Across the square, I saw Troy's Cadillac parked outside the coffee shop. He was inside, visible through the window, phone pressed to his ear. Even from a distance, I could see the tension in his shoulders. "He knows," Pauline said. "Good." We drove home as the afternoon light turned everything gold and fragile. The compass sat in my coat pocket. True North didn't change just because someone wanted it to. The courtroom smelled like furniture polish and old wood. March 28th came in gray and cold, the last gasp of winter before spring broke through. I sat at the plaintiff's table with Pauline, watching people file in, Dutch in his Sunday suit looking uncomfortable, Edna from the county office, a handful of congregation members who'd driven over to watch. Troy sat across the aisle with 2 lawyers in expensive suits, Linda beside him, pale and drawn. She wouldn't look at me. Judge Morrison entered at 10 sharp. Everyone stood. He was older than I expected, maybe 75, with white hair and reading glasses on a chain. He settled into his chair with a grunt. "Let's keep this moving," he said. "I've got 2 more hearings today. Ms. Moss, you filed the emergency action. Make your case." Pauline stood, legal pad in hand. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward case of fraud. The defendants attempted to steal mineral rights worth $800 million through forged signatures, falsified surveys, and conspiracy with bank employees." Troy's lead lawyer stood. Objection. Those are criminal allegations not appropriate for a civil title dispute. They're relevant when proving the title claim is fraudulent, Pauline said, which I'll demonstrate with physical evidence and witness testimony. Judge Morrison waved them both down. I'll allow it, but keep it tight, Ms. Moss. Evidence first, dramatics later. Pauline nodded and called Dutch to the stand. He walked slowly, boots echoing on the hardwood floor. The bailiff swore him in. Dutch sat, hands folded, looking more comfortable now that he had something to do. Mr. Kemper, Pauline said, you surveyed Mr. Heller's property in 1974, correct? Yes, ma'am, with his father. Took us 3 weeks with the old transit equipment. And these are your original survey maps? She held up the vellum documents. They are. Still got my signature and measurements. She laid them on the evidence table, then placed Troy's survey beside them. Can you explain the discrepancy? Dutch leaned forward, pointing. This corner here, northwest oak tree. Our original survey puts the property line true north from that marker 2,200 feet. Troy Garrett's survey moves it 15 feet east into Mr. Heller's property. Is that significant? 15 feet across the entire back 40? That's half an acre. And it just happens that the mineral deposits run through that corridor. Dutch looked at Troy. That's not a survey error, that's deliberate fraud. And Troy's lawyer stood. Objection. Witness is speculating about intent. Sustained, Judge Morrison said. Stick to the measurements, Mr. Kemper. The measurements don't lie, Dutch said. I took them myself 49 years ago. They're accurate to within 6 inches. Troy's survey isn't. Pauline introduced the photographs next. One by one, she displayed them on the screen. Warren's compass beside each fraudulent stake, the brass catching sunlight, the needle pointing north. Mr. Heller documented every discrepancy, she said, using his father's surveying compass from 1952, the same compass used in the original survey. These photographs prove the stakes were moved deliberately to alter the property boundaries. Judge Morrison leaned forward, studying the images. That's the same compass in every photo? Yes, Your Honor, I said. He looked at me. Your father's? Yes, sir. He used it to clear this land, taught me to use it the same way. Yet something flickered in the judge's expression. He made a note. Pauline continued. The survey fraud was necessary because the defendants needed to establish that the mineral deposits fell within property they could claim through their shell company. Without moving the boundaries, the minerals remained entirely on Mr. Heller's land. She entered the LLC documents next. Articles of incorporation for Heller Holdings, transfer authorizations, mineral rights applications. Every one of these, she said, bears Warren Heller's signature, and every one is a forgery. Troy's lawyer objected again. Where's the proof of forgery? These signatures look legitimate to me. Pauline smiled. I'm glad you asked. She called her forensic document examiner, a woman named Dr. Chen, who spent 20 minutes explaining pressure analysis, ink consistency, and traced while signatures in language so technical half the courtroom glazed over. But the conclusion was clear. Warren had never signed anything. The impressions on the bank loan document, Dr. Chen said, pointing to a magnified image, prove someone placed an authentic signature on top of this page and traced over it. Classic forgery technique. Who had access to Mr. Heller's authentic signatures? Pauline asked. His wife, bank records, anyone with access to his personal files. Linda shifted in her seat, still wouldn't look up. Pauline entered the final piece, Preston's written statement obtained through the DA's office. The former bank officer admits to facilitating the fraud, she said. He confirms Troy Garrett paid him $250,000 to approve loans without proper verification and to look the other way on suspicious documents. Troy's lawyer was on his feet. That statement was obtained under duress. It's not admissible. It's a sworn affidavit, Pauline said. Given voluntarily in exchange for immunity, completely admissible. Judge Morrison read Preston's statement slowly. The courtroom was silent, except for the radiator, hissing steam, and someone coughing in the back row. Finally, the judge set the papers down. Mr. Garrett, he said, do you want to respond to any of this? Troy's lawyers whispered urgently. Troy shook his head, face red. We maintain our client did nothing wrong, the lead lawyer said. This is a misunderstanding blown out of proportion by, A misunderstanding? Judge Morrison removed his glasses. Son, I've been on this bench 32 years. I know fraud when I see it, and this, he gestured at the evidence table, is fraud. Conspiracy, forgery, take your pick. He turned to me. Mr. Heller, these mineral rights, the $800 million, did you know about them before this mess started? No, sir. Did you authorize any transfers? No, sir. Did you sign any of these documents? Not a single one. Judge Morrison looked at Troy. Your permit expires in 3 days, March 31st. That's why we're here on an emergency basis, isn't it? You needed this rushed through before your deadline. Troy's lawyer started to speak, but the judge held up his hand. Save it. I've heard enough. He made a note on his legal pad. I'm ruling in favor of the plaintiff. All transactions on the Heller property are frozen. The LLC claiming mineral rights is dissolved, and I'm referring this case to the district attorney for criminal investigation. The gavel came down. Troy was on his feet, face drained white. Your Honor, you don't understand. I have investors, contracts. If this deal doesn't close, then you should have done it legally, Judge Morrison said. Court's adjourned. Outside on the courthouse steps, Dutch clapped me on the shoulder. Your daddy would be proud. Pauline gathered her files, clicking her pen with satisfaction. 3 days, the permit expires, and this whole thing dies with it. Across the parking lot, Troy stood by his Cadillac, phone pressed to his ear. Even from a distance, I could see him shaking his head, arguing with whoever was on the other end. Linda sat in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead at nothing. You think they'll appeal? I asked. With what? Pauline said. They've got no case, no evidence, and now the DA's involved. She smiled. They're done, Warren. We drove back toward town as the afternoon sun broke through the clouds. The snow was melting fast now, revealing brown grass and muddy fields. Spring was coming whether winter was ready or not. My phone buzzed as we pulled into the diner parking lot. Unknown number, I answered. Hello? Mr. Heller? A voice I didn't recognize. Young, nervous. This is Marcus Webb. I'm Troy Garrett's assistant. Was his assistant. I quit this morning. Okay. I thought you should know. Troy's got some people coming in tonight. From Chicago. The investors he owes money to. They're not happy the deal fell through. That's between him and them. I know. He paused. They're not nice people, Mr. Heller. And Troy's been drinking since the hearing, saying things about you, about how this is all your fault. I thought you should know. Be careful. The line went dead. I sat in the truck, staring at the phone. Pauline looked over. What was that? Warning, I said. Troy's desperate. Good, she said. Desperate means defeated. But I kept thinking about that voice on the phone, the nervousness in it. Troy owed bad people $800 million. And March 31st was still 3 days away. Troy's Cadillac showed up at my house on March 30th. The day before the permit expired. I was on the porch with coffee, watching the sunrise paint the fields gold. The car came up the drive too fast, spraying gravel. He got out looking like he hadn't slept in days, suit wrinkled, tie loose, eyes red. Warren, he climbed the steps, swaying slightly, whiskey smell coming off him in waves. We need to talk. I set my coffee down. Nothing to talk about. Please. He held up his hands. Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I didn't move. He sank into the porch chair uninvited, head in his hands. They're going to kill me, he said. The Chicago people. I owe them everything. The investors, the contractors, everyone. They fronted millions based on this deal closing. He looked up. Tomorrow that permit expires and I've got nothing. No minerals, no property, no way to pay them back. Should have thought of that before you tried to steal from me. I know. But Warren, please, just sign the transfer. Take half, $400 million. We split it. Everyone wins. Everyone but me. You'd be rich. I'd be a thief. I picked up the compass from the porch rail. This was my father's. He used it to walk this land for 40 years. Never got rich, never needed to, just did honest work. Troy laughed, bitter, broken. Honest work. That's what got you. An empty house and a wife who hated you. I should have been angry. Instead, I just felt tired. Linda hates herself, I said. Not me. Took me a while to see it, but that's the truth. You just gave her an excuse. He stood, wobbling. Tomorrow it's over. You understand that? The deal dies. I'm ruined. And for what? So you can keep walking around with your dead father's compass pretending you're some kind of saint? No, I said. So I can keep what's mine. He stared at me, eyes hollow. Then he turned and stumbled down the steps. The Cadillac roared to life. He was gone in a spray of mud and gravel. I sat back down, watched the sun climb higher. The compass was warm in my hand now. At midnight, the permit expired. I stayed up to see it happen, sitting at the kitchen table with Pauline on speakerphone. "That's it," she said when the clock struck 12. "It's done. The mineral rights revert to you, free and clear. Troy's deal is dead." "What happens to him?" "DA filed charges yesterday. Fraud, conspiracy, forgery. He's looking at 5 to 10 if convicted." She paused. "Linda's cooperating, testifying against him in exchange for probation." "She coming back?" "No. She signed the divorce papers this morning. House is yours. She asked for nothing." I looked around the empty kitchen. 40 years of marriage, and it ended with a signature on a legal pad. "You okay?" Pauline asked. "I will be." Linda came by in early April. The dogwoods were blooming, white petals drifting across the yard like snow. She pulled up in a rental car, sat behind the wheel for 5 minutes before getting out. I met her on the porch. "I'm leaving," she said. "Going to my sister's in Florida. Thought I should, I don't know, say goodbye." "Okay." She looked older, tired. The diamond bracelet was gone. "I'm sorry," she said. "For all of it. I was angry at you for so long I forgot why. And Troy made me feel something. Doesn't matter now." "No, it doesn't." She nodded, started to leave, then turned back. "You keeping the minerals?" "Haven't decided. Don't need $800 million. I touched the compass in my pocket. "But I'm keeping the land." She almost smiled. "Your father would be proud." "Maybe." She drove away. I watched until the car disappeared, then walked out to the back 40. Dutch's grandson, Jake, was there with the old transit equipment, learning to survey the way his grandfather had taught him. "Mr. Heller." He straightened up, wiping his hands. I pulled out the compass, held it for a moment, feeling the weight of 3 generations. "This was my father's," I said, "and his father's before that. I want you to have it." Jake's eyes went wide. "Sir, I can't." "You can." I pressed it into his hands. "Your granddad and I walked these lines with this. Now it's your turn. True north doesn't change because someone moves the markers. Remember that." He held the compass carefully, reverently. "I will, sir. I promise." I left him there, checking corners with Brass and Faith, walked back toward the house as the sun climbed higher, turning everything green and new. Spring had finally come. I moved into the cabin on the back 40 in May. Smaller place, just 2 rooms and a porch, but it suited me fine. The farmhouse felt too big, too full of ghosts. I gave it to Dutch's daughter. She had 3 kids and needed the space. Sometimes I see them playing in the yard, hear their laughter carrying across the field. It sounds right. Pauline comes by once a week. We have coffee on the porch, and she tells me about her garden, about the grandkids, about nothing important. That's how I know we've healed the years between us. When you can sit quiet with someone and not feel the need to fill the silence. Troy took a plea deal. 7 years. He'll be out in 4 with good behavior. Linda sends Christmas cards from Florida. Just her name signed at the bottom, no message. I don't send any back, but I don't throw hers away either. Some things you hold on to not because they matter, but because letting go takes more energy than keeping them. The minerals are still there. $800 million under my feet. Mining companies call sometimes, lawyers with offers. I listen politely and tell them no, maybe someday, maybe when I'm gone, and it's someone else's decision. But not now, not yet. People ask if I'm lonely out here, Pauline asks. Pastor Jim, when he visits to apologize for doubting me. Even Dutch, though he knows better than most that being alone isn't the same as being lonely. Loneliness is living with someone who doesn't see you, who looks through you like you're furniture, who calls you useless while planning to rob you blind. Out here, every morning, I see exactly where I am. The dogwood blossoms drift past the porch, cardinals sing from the oak trees, the creek runs full with spring rain. I drink coffee and watch the sun come up over land my father cleared, my grandfather cleared, land that's held steady for generations while everything else changed. Jake comes by to practice surveying. He's good at it, patient and careful. Sometimes I watch him work with the old transit, and I see Dutch at that age, see myself, see my father. The land remembers even when people forget. The compass sits on the porch rail now, retired but present. The brass has dulled some, but the needle still finds north, still holds true. Sometimes I pick it up just to feel the weight of it, the history. True north doesn't change because someone moves the markers. My father taught me that. Took me 40 years to really understand it. There's a knock at the door some evenings, Dutch bringing fresh tomatoes from his garden, or Bonnie from the diner with leftover pie, or Edna from the county office checking to make sure I'm eating. Small town kindness, the kind that doesn't need thanks or recognition, it just is. I sleep well these days. Better than I have in years. No wine-stained memories, no voices calling me useless. Just the sound of wind through the trees and the creak of the cabin settling, and the knowledge that what's mine is mine. Not because, I fought for it, though I did. Not because I was smarter or stronger or better, though maybe I was patient enough, but because I knew what mattered and what didn't. And when they tried to take the first, I held on until they got tired of pushing. The sun's going down now. Cardinals calling their last songs before dark. I finish my coffee and set the mug beside the compass. Tomorrow I'll walk the fence line again. Check the corners. Make sure everything holds, same as I always have. Same as I always will. Because some things, land, family, true north, they're worth walking for. Every single morning.